Covering news where you live, this is 5 News.
Well, thank you for joining us here for the latest news where you live. I'm Joe Ellison. The defense will present their case today as Shauna Cash's capital murder trial enters day 3. The prosecution has rested their case after calling more than 5 witnesses Tuesday to describe how Pea Ridge officer Kevin Apple was killed. The prosecution showed video and additional evidence, including footage showing Officer Apple being hit and dragged by a car. The medical examiner who performed the autopsy added the cause of death was ruled a homicide. And just before the prosecution rested, they played audio of phone calls that Shauna Cash made, where she was heard laughing, they say, about this incident. This case could go to the jury for deliberation as soon as today. Of course, we will bring you any updates from that courtroom at 5newsonline.com. And Marcus Joyner has pleaded guilty to killing his wife and will now spend his life in prison with no chance of parole. Joyner appeared before a judge Tuesday over Zoom, admitting that he stabbed his wife to death. Investigators say Dr. Amy Phelps ran outside of her Fayetteville home that she shared with her husband last April, calling 911 and then telling dispatchers her husband was intoxicated and aggressive. Police believe in that moment, Joyner ran up to his wife and stabbed her. Prosecutors say the death penalty was still a possibility before Tuesday's hearing, but the plea change takes capital punishment off the table. And more developments at the Arkansas Board of Corrections. The man tapped to run the state's prisons says he doesn't want it. Eddie Joe Williams sent a letter on Tuesday declining the appointment to be the interim Secretary of Corrections. In that letter, he says his appointment, quote, took on a life of its own. A letter from the Attorney General Tim Griffin last week warned the board they don't have the power to appoint anyone to the job. And the free application for federal student aid, better known as FAFSA, has come out with a new plan to help make it easier for students to fill out. But now an issue could force students to delay their college decision. After repeated delays, the student aid package has officially been pushed back until March, which is 5 months later than the usual October opening. Despite the delay, though, the University of Arkansas says it's in a great spot and could be looking for another record class. And while the university is doing well, Fayetteville High School's college counselor says this year's high school senior class has a lot more on their plate than the classes before them.
Seniors are stressed right now anyway. They know that within 8 to 12 months their life is going to be very different, and usually they can go ahead and make that decision about at least where they're going to live, or where they're going to be going to school. And it just is pushing that decision back.
Now, she also says that students should still have plenty of time to make a decision even with this delay. And while the normal deadline for a college decision is May 1st, many colleges are asking for a bit more time for students. Before we get to other news of the day, let's get a check of your weather with meteorologist Zach Scott. Hey, Zach.
Hey, Joe, we started out mostly in the low to mid 40s. We're warming up even with the added cloud cover around today. We're going to look for temperatures to get back into those comfortable widespread 60s like we saw on Tuesday. A little bit of a cool breeze coming out of the southeast, about 5 to 15 miles per hour. Again, mix of sun and clouds across 5 country. We could see some gusts up to 20 miles per hour. Northwest Arkansas gusts 15 miles per hour or so around the river valley. We'll go low to mid 60s, Northwest Arkansas up to 65, 66. We'll go more widespread mid 60s in the river valley up to 67, 68 degrees. We only cool into the upper 40s, low 50s overnight, with a 20% chance of some spotty showers working out of eastern Oklahoma into western Arkansas. This is out ahead of a front that'll move through. Good news for us, it's a weak front. It's a Pacific front. Pacific fronts don't have a big push of cold air on the backside. So as the front passes by, we'll start out with clouds. We'll end with increasing sunshine through the afternoon. A strong southwest wind coming in, gusting over 30 miles per hour. And that's going to boost those temperatures up into the upper 60s and low 70s. Again, you'll have a 20% chance, Joe, of some spotty showers Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Not a big deal. Next rain chances pick up as we go into Sunday.
All right, thanks for that, Zach. Well, Americans are remembering country music singer Toby Keith. The 62-year-old died Monday after a battle with stomach cancer. And even though he was from Oklahoma, he had close ties to the River Valley. 5 News reporter Lauren Spencer has more on the history behind the club in Fort Smith where Keith found his love for music.
Crazy for feeling so lonely. What now is a Mexican food restaurant, gas station, and Indian food restaurant used to be the Billy Gardner Supper Club in the 70s, a place to go dance.
It wasn't a bar, and it wasn't really a honky-tonk, and it wasn't really a tavern. It was small, and they served very good food. They had flute, clarinet, saxophone, xylophone, bass, guitar, drums, and a nice pianist.
Danny Flippin's dad was the lead singer for the club's band, and Toby Keith's grandmother Hilga was the head server, later becoming the owner. Keith spent his summers in Fort Smith at the Supper Club, working and sitting with the band on stage after.
He was a little guy, blonde-headed boy. I remember him scooting around here, and from what I understand, he spent many, many nights here. We probably shared a Coke together and talked about probably football or something like that, a little bit of music.
And the music Keith found inspirational went something like this. Swing dancing music that brought him to pick up a guitar at the age of 8.
It influenced him to get him in the line of music.
Keith wrote his songs like Honky Tonk You and Clancy's Tavern in honor of the club and his grandmother, who bought him his first guitar.
That was pretty cool, watching that. You know, I was like, I know that guy.
As Flippin remembers the Supper Club and Toby Keith.
It was heartbreaking. I thought he was on his road to recovery, and then the next thing you know, this happened, and it hit me pretty hard, actually.
In Fort Smith, covering news where you live, Lauren Spencer, 5 News.
Well, Toby Keith also played football for 2 years at the Fort Smith Boys and Girls Club as a kid. And just last year, Keith acquired Lucky Strike, a Greenwood-based bait and tackle brand. Those are some of your top stories on this day. I'm Jo Ellison. Make sure to catch up with us again tomorrow right here for more. Have a great day.